Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another No Evidence. Today I'm going to be trying something new and dubbing this video over, so let me know if you prefer this. But anyways, let's hop right into the game. So just to start off, we're going to grab a smudge stick for insurance against a demon instant hunt, and we're also going to grab a thermometer so we can track down the ghost room incredibly quickly. And of course we don't bring in a flashlight because we are gamers. So first off, let's find the breaker, and let's also, while we're doing that, look for some hiding spots. For example, in this game we have the living room corridor wardrobe as a hiding spot. Now because we don't have the breaker in the garage, we know it's going to be in the basement. What we are now going to do is use the thermometer to find the ghost room. We're going to walk into each individual room and see for when the mercury, the little red thing in the thermometer, starts going down. When that starts going down, we know that it's unnaturally colder in this room than the other rooms, which indicates that we likely do have the ghost room, or at least a room where the ghost is in. So notice how when we were in the garage and when we're in the living room and now when we're in the kitchen, that the mercury is staying the same and increasing slightly as the house warms due to the breaker being on. So we can basically tell that these rooms aren't the ghost room by this information. The freezing breath is sort of a spoiler, but you can also see that the mercury is decreasing as we're in the garage, so we know that the ghost room is the garage. Again, it's a bit of a spoiler that we have the freezing breath. That's the second, or well, no, it's the primary indicator of the ghost room. When the house is warm, but you're getting freezing breath in a specific room, you know that that's probably, and I say probably, the ghost room. So now let's just get a bunch of items into the house just for ease of access. So now that we've got everything preliminary inside the house, let's just get a crucifix so we can place that down and give us more insurance in case we have a demon. Notice that I haven't put the crucifix in a place so that its radius of effectiveness covers the entire room. This is due to the fact that the demon is incredibly weak against the crucifix, meaning that the range of effectiveness, whilst it can't be seen, is increased significantly when we have a demon. That means that I can put the crucifix in a place where its range of effectiveness may not look like it covers the whole room, but against a demon specifically, it would cover the whole room and probably even more. Now let's start shuffling over items from the front door over to near where the ghost room is, just so we can be a bit more safer with how we move objects. For example, when we don't have a smudge stick on us, a smudge stick and a lighter, then we're incredibly vulnerable as we are now. So just making sure that we move things bit by bit gives us more safety. Now let's start with a wraith test by putting down salt and seeing whether the ghost steps in the salt. If it isn't a wraith, then the ghost will essentially move past the salt, but it won't step in it ever. And we can tell that this isn't a wraith because it stepped in the salt. So now let's do a mimic test by seeing if we have so-called fake ghost orbs in a No Evidence. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the video camera and turn the lights off and just see if we have ghost orbs. Not sure about you guys, but I cannot see ghost orbs in this room. So I think we are safe enough to rule out the mimic. So let's do an Onryo test. What we are going to do is we're going to get a candle, place it down on top of the crucifix, and we are going to light it up. The ghost will blow out the candle, and if on the third time it blows out the candle, the ghost starts hunting regardless of what the sanity is, or it attempts to start a hunt but is stopped by the crucifix, then we know that this is probably an Onryo. Just for safety purposes, if you do get an Onryo test success, you might want to replicate it just so you don't have a false positive instead. So now I have the parabolic microphone in my hand, so we can do a Moroi Banshee test. Moroi Banshee test is essentially trying to get whispers, or in the Banshee's case, a scream. So what we want is to get as many whispers as possible so that we can first off confirm or rule out a Moroi by gauging our sanity loss after a respective whisper, or by getting a scream or a lack of scream, so we can say it's statistically improbable to have a Banshee. Now that we have 2 candles blown out, we should be a bit careful, because if it is a Moroi, then the next candle it blows out will cause a hunt to at least be attempted. And something to notice, which is a bit unique to this ghost, is that it's hardly doing anything. You can notice that there are it's throwing very few things around us, and it's being incredibly quiet, which is incredibly suspicious. And this fact will become very important later on. And now the ghost has blown out through candles, and it has not started a hunt. So we know from this information that it cannot be an Onryo. Now, I have been cutting footage of this game a lot because the ghost genuinely has not been doing much, and I want to make sure that this content also is enjoyable and you're not just looking at me standing around for minutes on end. So now that we have gotten a whisper, I'm going to go back to the truck to check on my sanity so we can do a Moroi test. So we can notice that my sanity is around 90% at this moment in time. So what our Moroi test will do, is that we are going to stand in light for about a minute or so, and if our sanity drastically decreases while we are standing in the light, then we know it is a Moroi. Otherwise, if we're standing in the light and our sanity does not drain basically at all, as we should expect, then we would expect for this not to be a Moroi. And since our sanity is still around 90, we can confirm that this is not a Moroi. So now I'm bringing in a second crucifix just so we have extra protection against whatever ghost we have, and so we don't get hunted when we're not expecting it. So now we're going to do something that I like to call Sanity Loss Control, or SLC. Now what this is standing in the dark for a specific amount of time so we can control the amount of sanity that we lose. On 200% sanity drain speed, we will lose 7% sanity per minute. So what we're going to start with now is stand in the dark for about 2 minutes so we can drain our sanity to be about 75% total. Now with SLC, and also this applies to other tests as well, you want to make sure that you have any form of timer on you, whether it's a stopwatch, a regular watch, or a phone, or anything else. You want to make sure you have that on you so you're timing the amount of sanity loss very specifically, and so you can control what your sanity is. And I'm just going to fast forward a bit because at this point I have realized how little this ghost is doing, and we're going to look over to nearby places to the ghost room, because we can see in the kitchen that it's not in the kitchen, the dining room, that it's done a few things here and there. It's thrown a fork on the ground, it's dropped a few paintings. But if we go around the garage, there is basically nothing that is out of place, which is incredibly suspicious that a ghost is doing this little. And for this reason, I have genuine suspicions that we might be dealing with one of the most annoying ghosts to deal with in a No Evidence, a shade. So now fast forwarding a bit of the ghost doing nothing, we are going to just put in a second motion sensor to track around where this ghost is going, if it's staying near me, and if it's actively moving away from me. Because the motion sensor is incredibly powerful in tracking specific ghost movements relative to your location. Now, because we are reducing our sanity, we want to power up a Raiju, if this is a Raiju, by placing more electronics nearby. The garage is a fairly large room, so what I'm going to do is put a dot in the essentially what is the center of this room, so that not only will its hunt threshold increase drastically, but also its speed while it is in the garage. Now you're going to see that I realized a mistake of something that I hadn't have done yet, and that is I am turning the ghost room light off in case this is a mare. A mare's hunt sanity threshold increases to 60% when the lights in its ghost room is off, or when in its room is off. So having the lights off will increase its sanity to 60%, making this ghost easier to identify if it is a mare. And I say if because even though it just touched a door, the amount that it is doing, this ghost is doing absolutely nothing. So I genuinely do believe at this point that this is a shade, and going forward we will use SLC, Sanity Loss Control, to essentially identify if this ghost is a shade. We're going to slowly whittle down our sanity, because the shade has a sanity hunt threshold of 35%, we are going to slowly cross off bit by bit every single other ghost, the early hunters, then the regular hunters, then the Diogen, and finally when we go below 35%, we should expect our first hunt of the game. Now cutting forward a bit, we've waited a lot more time inside the house, so we're just going to go to the truck to see our sanity. It's now at 65-ish%, just above 65. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait inside of the dark for another minute so we can get below 60 but above 50%. We're going to wait a bit there for a while and essentially rule out the early hunters, because while we're above 60 and the room is dark and there's electronics, the demon, the mare, and the Raiju should start a hunt, but if it doesn't, then, well, we know it's not there, it's 3. So here I make the main mistake of the run, and ultimately why we couldn't have gotten a perfect investigation, and that was because I panicked at the ghost event and took a photo when I probably shouldn't have. So with that, we unfortunately cannot get a perfect investigation now because we don't have all 3-star photos. However, we'll try to get as close to a perfect investigation as possible, i.e. get all 3 optional objectives and get as many 3-star photos as possible. Also, notice that our sanity still is around 60-ish. That means that whilst I did experience the ghost event, I didn't actually touch the ghost or go in contact with the ghost, so my sanity did not drain. It's important when you're doing an Oni test, which is that you make sure to interact physically with the ghost, because when you interact physically with the ghost, only then does it drain sanity, except if it's a phantom, but that's an exception. If it's a regular ghost, then touching a ghost during a ghost event will drain your sanity by 10%. If it's an Oni, it will drain your sanity by 15%. But if it's a phantom, then just looking at the ghost will also drain your sanity at, I believe it's 1.5% sanity a second. I might be wrong on that. It's around that. Now, you might want to suspect that the ghost travelled towards me. It might be roaming towards me because it just interacted with that chute. However, keep in mind, because of the layout of Tanglewood, the garage is right next to the foyer, so it probably interacted with the chute through the wall. Now, notice that our sanity is perfect at the moment. We are at about 50-ish percent, 54%, and so now, any of the normal hunters, like the Spirit Pulsar, Phantom, Banshee, Jinn, yada yada yada, they will not be able to hunt at the moment, but the Mare, Demon, Raiju, and potentially the Thaye, maybe, will be able to hunt because we are below 60, above 50, and if we do get a hunt, then we can very much whittle it down to those 4 now. If we don't, then essentially it's a lot easier for us to just rule them out due to inactive hunts. Well, the lack of hunts. Now, something to mention is that whilst the ghost isn't getting too much more interactive, it is slightly getting more interactive, and that is a very good sign that we are dealing with a shade, because just like any other ghost, the shade does become slightly more active as the game progresses and our sanity decreases. So that's very important to take a note of, that it's interacting with the car and actually doing stuff now. Alright, something that's important is that the ghost just did an airball ghost event, so we can rule out an Oni, because the Oni is the only ghost that cannot do this specific type of ghost event. But even more importantly, our sanity would have just decreased by 10%, making it about 45% or so, so now we should be in the hunt range of any regular ghost. So if it was a regular ghost, or even an early hunter, we should expect this front door to close on us at any second. But as we will suspect, because we think it's a shade, it's probably not going to close on us. So we just confirmed that our sanity is around 45%. And at this point, we are going to just stand near the front door, wait for the ghost to hunt, if it is a normal hunter. And fast forwarding a bit, now I'm just going to check for other hiding spots, such as the boys' bedroom, and look, we have a hand. And we do also have the boys' bedroom wardrobe, which is something to keep in mind as a hiding spot. Now, it did just do another airball ghost event, so now our sanity should be below 35%, so we should expect a shade hunt at any moment now. But something about this ghost which is a bit odd is that it's not hunting. And let's think about the layout of the Tanglewood map. The garage is right next to the foyer. So what's going in my mind at the moment is this ghost is hunting because there's a shade, and I'm technically nearby the ghost. Because with the shade cannot start a hunt if A, you're in the same room as it, or B, you are near the general vicinity of the ghost. I don't know the exact meter range, but you have to be close to the ghost. And just fast forwarding a bit, I decide to test something, being that I'm going to stand far away from the ghost room, i.e. in the corner of the boys' bedroom. I'm going to test if we get a hunt when I'm far away from the ghost. And look at that. As soon as I was far away from the ghost, it used a crucifix. So we can indeed say when I was far away from the ghost, only then did it want to start a hunt. Also, another thing to notice is that we're getting freezing breath in a room that isn't the garage. So what we can say here is, well, it is very likely that the ghost has changed rooms from the garage into this one. So it cannot be a Goryo, because the Goryo cannot change favorite ghost rooms. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the crucifix as far away from the ghost room so that we can actually get a hunt, because one of our objectives involves escaping the ghost during a hunt. Okay, so the hunt's over now, and let's evaluate what we have. Let's just step outside of the house and evaluate what we have. Well, we know it was regular blinking, so it cannot be a phantom. It was regular speed, so it cannot be a revenant. It cannot be a Raiju. Cannot be the twins. Probably not a Thay because it's sped up as well. Not a Hantu because it also sped up. The footsteps were very clear to hear, so it cannot be a Myling. What happens is when you have a Myling, the radius of which you can hear its footsteps is decreased. It's also not a Mero Demon because it was not active enough in hunting to be either of those two. Especially not a demon. We had a demon in the last game, and you know how aggressive those were. It's not a Diogen because I could actually hide from it, and it didn't storm towards me. It didn't storm towards me and just slow down immensely when it was nearby. I would say it's not the twins because it was regular. I can't really say if it's no Barcade because I didn't see it for long enough. However, given the information we have, we probably know that it is a shade, so it's sort of useless knowledge anyway. I didn't do a proper yokai test, so that was one that I couldn't properly rule out. With the Jinn, it didn't do a Jinn speed up when it saw me. What the Jinn does is when it sees you and it's not close to you, it will do a fast speed up, but then slow down to be normal speed when it is near you. And it only does that if the breaker is on, which the breaker was on at that time. So at this point in time, we could have just ruled out a lot of the ghosts with this hunt, but given the fact that our Sandy was the way it was, it inactiveness, I think we can be incredibly safe to say that this is very likely that we're dealing with a shade. Alrighty, so now we have all 3 objectives, but we do still need 3 more photos, so we might as well just get some salt photos. Again, we can't get a perfect investigation, but we might as well get as close as we can to it. So let's just take a sanity pill or adrenaline rush, and let's go put some salt down and get some photos. Now, because we had freezing breath in that room, we should just put the salt in there. And if we look at the thermometer, yep, it's hot in there. And as soon as we go into this room, the mercury in that decreases. Might as well just put, oh yep, and we have it's step in the salt. So let's go grab our camera. And here's a second mistake that I make. I take the photos while standing up. And you're going to notice that these actually turn out to be 2-star. Something to keep in mind when you're taking salt photos is to always make sure that you crouch when you take salt photos. It's very important because otherwise you're going to get 2-star. So we have 4 photos that aren't 3-star, which is unfortunate, so couldn't have been a perfect game. However, we are dealing with a shade, and we're going to take this almost perfect investigation. And there we go. It's a shade. Now, this really shows how frustrating shades are to deal with, just because of their tendency to do quite literally nothing. So, we'll take this almost perfect investigation. Obviously it wasn't a perfect investigation. We'll take that 3K. Let's look at the game summary. 55 ghost interactions in 37 minutes. A lot of those would have been during the hunt as well. Something is that any interaction, including hunt interactions, are counted in the ghost interactions thing, so it would have done a lot less during the total time. And yeah, as we can see, the ghost did hardly anything. Hardly anything. It did not move 26 doors in total without that hunt as well. It did very little, and this just shows how ridiculous shades are to deal with and how disgusting they are. Why we don't like shades here. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I did not enjoy this game, but I hope you enjoyed anything you learned from it. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe. I usually put out a video every day at 12 PM AEST, and hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.